Hello, and welcome to a video presentation on multiplying decimals. Here's what you'll learn: how to multiply numbers that have decimals. Multiplying decimals is a simple four-step process. Step 1. We line up the digits on the right side, ignoring where any decimals may fall. Step 2. Ignore the decimals and signs on the numbers and multiply the numbers as you normally would. Step 3. Count the number of decimal places in the numbers you just multiplied together. And step 4. Add the decimal point and appropriate sign to your answer. Now, let's look at a few examples. Let's multiply 3 and 0.6 together. And we'll start by writing down the problem, remembering to line up the numbers on the right. And let's put the number with the most digits, the 0.6, on top, and let the decimals fall where they may. So when we write it down, it should look like this: 0.6 times 3. Now ignore the decimals and multiply the numbers as you normally would. 6 times 3 is 18, so I'll bring down an 8 and carry 1. 0 times 3 is 0, plus the 1 I carried, and bring down the 1. And we're done multiplying. Now let's count the number of decimal places in the numbers we just multiplied together. There is one decimal place in the number 0.6. There are no decimal places in the number 3. So that means our answer must have one decimal place. We're going to put our decimal point between the 1 and the 8, and our answer becomes 1.8. Now let's multiply -2 and 0.02 together. Let's start by writing the problem down, remembering to line up the numbers on the right. Let's put the number with the most digits, 0.02, on top, and let the decimals again fall where they may. So we have 0.02 times a -2. Now ignore signs and decimals. Multiply the numbers as you normally would. 2 times 2 is 4, so I'll bring a 4 down, and of course everything else is multiplied by 0, so we can just stop multiplying there. Now let's count the number of decimal places in the numbers we multiplied together. There are 2 decimal places in the number 0.02. There are no decimal places in the number -2. So our answer must have 2 decimal places. But we don't have 2 digits. We only have the 4. We can create extra digits by adding zeros in front of our 4. So let's go ahead and put a 0 in front of it. Now we have a 2-digit number. Now the decimal point will go in front of the 0 we just added, thus creating a number with 2 decimal places. Just like that. Numbers with only decimals in them should start with a 0, so let's put a 0 in front of that as well. And there's only one thing left to do, and that's to determine the sign on our answer. And as we know, a positive number times a negative number gives us a negative. So our answer is -0.04. Now let's multiply -6.32 and -1.8 together. Let's start by writing the problem down, remembering to line up the numbers on the right. Let's put the number with the most digits, that's -6.32, on top, and let the decimals fall where they may. So -6.32 times the -1.8. Now ignore signs and decimals. Multiply the numbers as you normally would, starting with the 8. So 2 times 8 is 16, so we'll bring down a 6 and carry 1. 3 times 8 is 24, plus the 1 we carried is 25, so bring down the 5 and carry 2. 6 times 8 is 48, plus the 2 we carried is 50, and we're going to bring down the entire 50. Next, we're going to multiply by the 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 6 is 6, and it lines up just like that. Now we're done multiplying. Let's add those products together. The 6 comes straight down. 5 plus 2 is 7. 0 plus 3 is 3. And 5 plus 6 is 11. Now, let's count the number of decimal places in the numbers we just multiplied together. There are 2 decimal places in the number negative 6.32. And there is 1 decimal place in the number negative 1.8. So that means our answer must have 3 decimal places in it. And that means the decimal will go between the 1 and the 3. Right there. There's only one thing left to do, and that's to determine the sign on our answer. And a negative number times a negative number we know gives us a positive number. So our final answer is 11.376. Now let's multiply 3 numbers together. Negative 0.73 times negative 2.04 times negative 12.9. Now since we're multiplying 3 decimal numbers together this time, I'm just going to take them 2 at a time, and we'll start from the left as the order of operations tells us to do. We're going to write down negative 2.04 times negative 0.73 to start this problem. Now ignore the signs and the decimals as we're supposed to do, and multiply as you normally would. We're going to start with the 3, of course. 4 times 3 is 12, so we'll write down a 2 and carry 1. 0 times 3 is 0, plus the 1 we carried brings down the 1. And finally, 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, we're finished multiplying by 3. Now move over to the 7. 7 times 4 is 28, so we'll bring down the 8 and carry 2. 0 times 7 is 0. So we'll bring down the 2 we just carried. And finally, 7 times 2 is 14. There's no need to multiply by the last 0 there because it just gives us 0 as the answer. So let's add these products together now. The 2 comes straight down. 1 plus 8 is 9. 6 plus 2 is 8. The 4 comes down, and the 1 comes down. Now let's count the number of decimal places in the numbers we've multiplied together so far. There are 2 decimal places in the number negative 2.04. And there are 2 decimal places in the number negative 0.73. So that means our answer is going to have 4 decimal places in it. And that means the decimal is going to go between the 1 and the 4. Just like that. Finally, what sign goes on that product? Well, a negative times a negative gives us a positive. So we'll leave it just like that, and we'll take the product of these first 2 numbers and multiply it by the last decimal, negative 12.9. 1.4892 times a negative 12.9. And let's start multiplying with the 9. 2 times 9 is 18. Bring down the 8 and carry 1. 9 times 9 is 81, plus the 1 we carried is 82. So bring down the 2, and then we're going to carry 8. 8 times 9 is 72, plus the 8 we carried is 80. So we'll bring down the 0 and carry an 8. 4 times 9 is 36, plus the 8 we carried is 44. So we'll bring down the 4 and carry a 4. Finally, 9 times 1 is 9, plus 4 is 13. And we're finished multiplying with the 9. Now let's multiply by the 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Bring that down. 2 times 9 is 18. Bring down the 8 and carry 1. 2 times 8 is 16, plus the 1 we carried is 17. So we'll bring down a 7 and carry another 1. 2 times 4 is 8, plus the 1 we carried is 9. And finally, 2 times 1 is 2. There we go. We're finished multiplying with the 2. And let's move over to the last digit we have to multiply by, which is the 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 4 is 4. And 1 times 1 is 1. Now we're done multiplying completely. Now we have to add the numbers, the products together. The 8 comes straight down. 2 plus 4 is 6. 0 plus 8 is 8. Plus 2 is 10. So we'll put down a 0 and carry 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. Plus 7 is 12. And plus 9 is 21. So we'll put down a 1 and carry 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 9 is 14. And 14 plus 8 is 22. So we'll put down a 2 and carry 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. And 5 plus 4 is 9. So a 9 goes there, and of course the 1 then comes down. Now determine the number of decimal places in our answer. The first number has 4 decimal places, and the second number has 1 decimal place. So that means our answer will have 5 decimal places. And that puts the decimal between the 9 and the 2, just like that. Finally, determine the sign for your answer. We know a positive times a negative gives us a negative. So let's put our negative sign in front of the answer, and we finally have negative 19.21068. Finally, let's work a word problem. Mary's mom went grocery shopping today. She needed 3.5 pounds of ground beef for a picnic. Ground beef costs $3.24 per pound. How much did Mary's mom spend on ground beef? Now, first we need an expression that we can solve. Since it's $3.24 for each pound, this is going to be a multiplication problem. So we set it up as $3.24, or 3.24, times 3.5, the 3.5 pounds that Mary's mom needs. We'll just run through the multiplication quickly on this problem. You're probably familiar with how to multiply by now. Ignore the decimals. Multiplying the top number, 324, by 5 will give you 1,620. And then multiplying 324 by 3 gives us 972. We line it up like that. And then we add the numbers or the products together. And when we add the numbers together, we get 11,340. Now there are 2 decimal places in the first number and 1 in the second number. That tells us we need 3 decimal places in our answer. So we place a decimal between the 1 and the 3, just like that. Finally, a positive times a positive gives us a positive number. So the sign is fine. And our answer is Mary's mom spent $11.34 on ground beef. Congratulations! You've learned how to multiply numbers that have decimals.